Hi there, this is Andrea Mowry of Traveler Knits, and today I'm going to show you how I like to close up the I-cord enclosure of a hoodie on a hood, and let's try it. So I do actually like to go ahead and feed my I-cord, so this will be my drawstring for my hoodie. So I like to go ahead and feed this through the little eyelet opening I had made because I find it easier to just encase my drawstring into the hem of that hood instead of having to feed this through later. I just think it's a little less fiddly this way. You could just put a little stitch marker or something on here to help drag it through and kind of do the inchworm, feed it through after, but I think this is just a bit easier. So I have my I-cord on the wrong side of the encasement. I go ahead and poke it through the eyelet so it's feeding through the correct side. And now I'm just gonna enclose it in there as I bind off and close this up at the same time. So I have gotten my encasement, my hem, I'm not sure what to call this. I'm gonna call it the encasement for my drawstring. The correct length that I need it. And now I'm ready to fold it back on itself and close this up. And I just do this all with one technique. Instead of, you could bind it off and then seam it closed, but I'm gonna do almost like a 3-needle bind off. Even though I'm not going to be using 3 needles, I'm going to be using 2, but it's going to be a similar method to that. So I went ahead and just grabbed a double pointed needle to do this. You absolutely could. I have my whole hood here. Let me zoom out. I have my whole hood here on a circular needle as I worked this edging. And so I could actually pull this over. It's just a bit awkward because of the length of my circular needle. So I just went ahead and grabbed a double pointed. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to zoom back in for you, is I'm going to, with each stitch, live stitch that's on my needle, I'm going to work that together with one of these little purl bumps that are the edge of my encasement here. And then I'm going to bind off as I go. So it'll be like this. All right, let's do it. So I would say that this first one's kind of the trickiest because technically the stitch belongs with this edge, but I'm gonna go, do you see this little bump here? That is where I am going to work my first one together. So I'm going to insert my needle. Make sure you can see this okay. Into that first little purl bump that's almost hidden by my edge. So it's right here. And then I'm going to insert my spare needle here. And I'm just going to knit them together. And now I'm going to move over to the next purl bump. And the way that I keep track of which purl bump I'm going into, do you see how there's an upper and a lower? I'm always going into the upper. So this is going to be my next one for my next stitch. So I insert my left-hand needle tip that has all my other stitches on it into that next purl bump. And then I just knit these two together. Now I'm going to bind off one stitch by simply pulling my first stitch over and off the top of the second one. And I'm just going to keep moving along just like this the whole way around my hood. So here is my next purl bump. Knit these two together. And then pull my first stitch up and over my second stitch. Go to my next upper purl bump, knit those two together, and pass one over the other. I'm going to do a few more and then I'll show you. And it doesn't matter if you're English or continental. I'm holding my yarn in my right hand for this right now just because I find it keeps it out of the way, but you can absolutely hold it in your left hand for continental, and it's the same steps. I'm going to pass my first stitch over my second. So if I I'm just going to pull a long loop here, and this is just to show you what this is looking like. So as we're moving along, you can see I'm creating this little tube, and it has this really tidy bind off here, and it's encasing my drawstring as I go. And I'm going to keep doing this all the way around. So let's do a few more. I'm going to slip my needle back in. That was just to show you what was going on. And again, I go for the next upper purl bump, knit it together with the next stitch on my left hand needle, and then pull the first stitch up and over the top of the second stitch. Go to my next purl bump, knit those two together, and pull the first up and over the second. So for this specific pattern that I'm working on, there was this little ridge that I created before knitting the encasement. And so that's why I have such a nice, easy place to spot where I'm picking up. So these are those little purl bumps that we're going to work along the whole way. And that's it. You just do that all the way around your hood. And when you're finished, you've got your drawstrings coming out just as they should be. The rest of it's in there without having to do the fiddly kind of inchworming it through the encasement. And then I'm just gonna seam down the ends of that encasement to my collar opening right here. And that's all. So I hope that you find this helpful if you're working on a hoodie with a drawstring, and happy knitting.